Right, my name is Russ Hunt. I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner from Northeast Oregon. And I want to talk to you about a presentation called When Two Worlds Collide. I'm a retired lieutenant commander from the United States Navy. And what I want to talk about is the two worlds of military and civilian. And when those two worlds come into contact, usually not very successfully. And so what I want to talk about is some of the problems about why that may happen. Just for introduction, I've got a total of 23 years of military service, 5.5 years active duty with the United States Navy. During Vietnam, several of my friends had gone to Canada and stayed. That was not an option for me and my family or any of that, so I decided to go in the military. One of the opportunities that I had when I went in was to be a musician. So I went into the Navy as a musician, comfortable in the fact that musicians did not go to Vietnam. I woke up one morning in Da Nang knowing that my plans had gone horribly wrong. And so I did a tour in the Vietnam theater where I was in country about 2 to 3 weeks, cross deck to a number of ships, was able to provide backup entertainment for a number of USO shows that came out. I was aboard the USS Enterprise when we went over, rode the USS Oriskany back. We transferred during a typhoon in the Indian Ocean and came back to the United States, went into the U.S. Navy Show Band West, toured for 2.5 years with the show band, and basically recruiting duty. I went to Vietnam with a saxophone and don't know where the transformation came, but I came back as a baby killer. And never could figure out exactly how that occurred, but that's what we got called when we got back. There was the turmoil that went on within the United States at that time, left me pretty dissatisfied with the military, I thought. And so I got out of the service, stayed out for about 10 years. At the end of 10 years, having not been very successful at much of anything financially, decided to go to college, joined the National Guard because the National Guard would pay. So I went into the National Guard on a try-one, ended up 4 years in the National Guard as a combat medic. So I went from being a Navy musician, 10 years break in service, most of that time pretty angry about the world in general. Went into the National Guard, still pretty angry, became a field medic, combat medic, served 4 years there, and then ultimately went back into the Navy as a commissioned officer. And the next 13 years spent in a variety of situations. I was a division officer for a 500-bed fleet hospital deportable that was a psych unit, and our job there was to study combat trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma. In theater, the job would be to take people from combat that were having difficulties, find out what the difficulty was, wrap them up, and get them back to their unit. We wanted to keep them in theater. We knew from studying the history of post-traumatic stress disorder, things like that, people who are removed from their units generally don't do as well as people who stay with their units. I studied the injuries, the recovery of PTSD, and during that time had gotten into the mental health field. Since then, I've had over 20 years of treating PTSD, military sexual trauma, other kinds of combat traumas, including traumatic brain injury. And what I want to talk about today is how the military world differs from the civilian world in ways that I think are not discussed. And because they're not discussed, they radically limit our ability as providers to work with veterans. I have a disclaimer. The disclaimer, nothing in this presentation is intended to reflect the beliefs or treatment protocols of anybody but me. Okay, I've had experience with the VA, I've had experience as a VA contractor, I've had experiences as a number of different things. These are my beliefs. I am not here to represent anyone but me. The presentation, I ran this by all kinds of combat vets, non-combat vets, and while they approve of what I'm talking about, it does not represent any beliefs but mine. Okay, I want to make that really clear. I'm talking about veterans, I'm not talking for them. So I'm not here as a veterans representative or a VA representative. I'm here, hopefully, to point out some areas that are very difficult in the transition of working with veterans. What I do in my presentations generally is I go through a list of basic assumptions. And the basic assumptions are, again, they're mine. And they're intended to either bring agreement or discussion. Okay? Either way. One of the basic assumptions that I have is that PTSD is being diagnosed more often in the military population than it has been. It's pretty benign. Okay, recovery is hampered by many factors, including a lack of understanding of the military culture / environment. And that's what I want to talk about today. What we talk about, the third part is cultural competence. When I went through graduate school, I taught at a university for about 6 years, and we always talked about cultural competence. If I was going to go to work in the inner city, if I was going to go to work with a native population, if I was going to go to work with about anybody, it was very important that we learn about cultural competence. Since I've been with the military, and then back with doing services and in meetings, seldom do we talk about cultural competence in the same sense. And much of what the military does, the civilian population doesn't understand and doesn't want to understand. Because it's not very nice stuff. It's not applied to the military world or to the providers of veterans. And I say that because I have meetings with people who talk about things, and we'll go through these as the presentation goes on. They talk about things with military culture. If they've gone to a short workshop that says this is what people who are deployed deal with, then they know all about military culture. They don't. Okay? There are things that are unique to the military and how we're trained and what we do. They were talking about natural disasters, and working with natural disasters and overcoming natural disasters. We bring natural disasters to your neighborhood and then help clean it up. So it's what the military deals with in a lot of cases is similar to what we're talking about. The military is a culture. It's different from the civilian culture. My belief is that without a strong military, our civilian culture would not exist in its present form. And the way I talk to veterans about that is that what we do, the rights that we have given our time to protect and serve, can be misused. And we, by our service, provide a forum for people to be as stupid as they choose to be without being killed in the streets. Most countries, if you say things that we say on a common, an everyday basis, you would watch the news. There's all kinds of things that get broadcast all the time. And a lot of veterans find a lot of that really objectionable because it's contrary to what we thought we were providing. The military world is a dictatorship. That dictatorship exists to provide a sphere of protection for the civilian world. Okay? Now, by a dictatorship in the military, I'm a Mustang officer. Okay? I put in 10 years enlisted and then was commissioned. So I went through boot camp, the basic training stuff, the things that went on to be the frontline kind of folks, and then became a commissioned officer and was more in the administrative end of things. In the military, when you're given an order, you're told to obey the order. It's not debatable. You can discuss it at certain times, but the military can give orders that says you will put yourself in harm's way. The likelihood of you returning are not good, but if you do, we'll give you a medal. And they'll jump up and run into that because that's the expectation. Okay, now with that, let me tell you that one of the things that I have absolutely come to believe is that you learn to be who you are and you can learn to be something different. We prove that in the military all the time. We take individuals from the civilian culture and world, take them into the military, and we indoctrinate them over a period of time to think the way we need them to think, to protect the civilian community, but we don't teach them how to come home. Okay, so we spend a lot of time indoctrinating them and don't spend time bringing them back. To a great degree, the civilian world does not understand nor want to understand the military world. See, in my belief, the military exists for one thing only, and that is to neutralize threats. And that's a sanitary way of saying, if you mess with us, we will kill you. Okay? We'll do all kinds of things up to that point to try to negotiate and to talk, but we have a population that we're going to keep safe, regardless of how off base that they can get at times. We'll let the laws take care of that. But you mess with us, and we will hunt you down, and we will kill you. That terror keeps us safe.